Hello friend, my name is Doombabe and today we're going to be talking about something that I get asked pretty damn frequently, which is anime I would suggest to new anime fans. I had that scripted and I still messed that up. If you're new to anime, hello. I suggest running while you can, but if you're persistent like I am, then sit down and take some notes. Alright, starting off the list, which is in no particular order, is Black Butler, also known as Kiro Shitsuji. Black Butler tells the story of CL Phantom Hive, a child that loses his parents after being kidnapped and tortured. While floating on the brink of death, he makes a pact with a demon that calls himself Sebastian, who promises to save his life and assist CL in obtaining revenge for his parents' death in exchange for his soul. The anime is set in Victorian Europe, and CL assists the queen with solving various mysteries while he's not managing his family's toy company or, looking into who the hell killed his parents. The reason I would suggest Black Butler to someone that's new to anime is because of its real world setting, and it touches on some historical topics such as Jack the Ripper, and I feel like that it having a real world setting and having topics that are pretty much like things that the viewer would already know about kind of makes it a little easier to relate to. That's something that I feel like is important when introducing someone to anime, just sort of like easing them into it instead of just showing them something like Dragon Ball Z or One Piece, because while you're getting a nostalgia boner off of it, something like that can be pretty damn jarring. It's also very aesthetically pleasing and has a beautiful soundtrack. It's also not too long, with only like 2 seasons that make up of, I think, like 36 episodes in total. I almost knocked my glass of water over. On the thought of relatable anime, the next one on the list is Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. While this isn't set in a real-world setting, this is very obviously influenced by like 1930s, 1940s Europe. Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood tells a story of Edward and Alphonse Elric, 2 brothers who lost their mother as children and used the art of alchemy in an attempt to bring her back to life. One of their attempt fails horrifically, resulting in Alphonse losing his body and Edward losing an arm and a leg in a last attempt at binding his brother's soul to a suit of armor. They're approached by soldiers, oh my god, why is that word so hard? That offer them positions as state alchemists. In return for their service, the government lets them pursue their personal mission of obtaining the Philosopher's Stone, a legendary gem that is said to be the supreme form of alchemy that allows the user to completely ignore the laws of transmutation. However, as their careers take off, the 2 brothers quickly begin to stumble upon a conspiracy that is pretty much going to destroy the world. We've got super sick character designs, a whole lot of feels, an intricate plot, and fantastic fighting scenes. Really, as I said in my last video, this is my favorite anime, so I could just go on and on and on about how totally fierce it is. Like Black Butler, it is also not terribly lengthy, with the finale coming in at around like 50 episodes. I also feel that the setting and, the whole concept of alchemy are familiar enough to where I feel like a viewer would have an easier time getting into the story. That aside, let's move on to Death Note, and yes, I am aware that this list is kind of turning into a circle jerk of fan favorites, but I kind of feel like things tend to become famous because they're good. Created in 2006, Death Note tells the story of a young student genius named Light Yagami who comes across a mysterious book called a Death Note, where a person can write a person's name into the pages and that book will kill them. After taking the book home, he encounters a god of death who are known as Shinigami named Ryuk, who explains to him the rules of the Death Note and teaches him how to use it creatively. Being the son of the police chief, Light has a very strong sense of justice and decides that his obtaining the Death Note is a sign of fate and uses it to kill criminals to create a new crimeless world. Of course, the police department catches on to the patterns of mysterious deaths but are unable to figure out who the serial killer is, so they call upon world-renowned detective known as L. The story then turns into a very entertaining game of cat and mouse between the 2. Again, this is something that I feel is very relatable because it has a real-world setting, and the concept of the god of death is something that is present in pretty much every known culture. It is a 37-episode anime that features an intense, nerve-wracking story and a really good soundtrack and, pretty damn good art. If you are a fan of things like Breaking Bad and Dexter, this is definitely right up your alley. I am totally Team Light. Fourth on the list is Psychopaths, which I would definitely suggest to anyone that is into like police/detective shows or stories about dystopian societies. This is a 22-episode psychological thriller type anime that tells the story of Akane, a recent recruit to the police force in a world where the government keeps a close eye on someone's psychopaths, which is their current state of mind. If someone's psychopath gets too high, whether it be just due to everyday stress or a mental disorder, they are considered a threat to society and is hunted down to be forced into mental care until it returns to normal. While this is a sci-fi anime, it's set in a very, not too distant future, so I feel like it would be really easy for someone to get into this. And police shows are like hella popular these days, so if you're into shows like Criminal Minds, this is totally up your alley. And shout out to my mom for getting me into Criminal Minds because, oh my god, that show is like crack. Avatar: The Last Airbender is my last suggestion for people who are new to anime, and I know this is definitely totally different from my other suggestions, which have all been in a real-world type setting, but Avatar: The Last Airbender was created for a Western audience specifically. Because of this, I feel like it's really easy for someone to get into it because it isn't full of the typical tropes and lingo that you usually need to already have an understanding for when you're watching a lot of anime. Avatar tells the story of Aang, a young boy that lives in a world where there are people with special gifts where they can manipulate the elements. While he was born as an airbender, he learns that he is a particularly special child known as an avatar, which is someone that can wield all 5 elements. He goes missing for 100 years and is found by a girl named Katara and her brother Sokka, frozen in a glacier. Aang learns that since being frozen, the world that they live in has been torn apart by war, which began 100 years ago after his disappearance when the Fire Nation wiped out the Airbenders and started a world war. It is then up to him to travel around to different continents to master all of the elements so that he can do badass stuff and take down the evil Fire Lord and bring peace to the world. So that does it for this list. If you feel I've missed something, feel free to go ahead and give your suggestions in the comments. However, if you do so, be sure to explain why you picked that title. Otherwise, you can find all of my social media as well as my Patreon in the description below. Happy unbirthday, and I will see you later. Bye!